Welcome one and all. Yet another Kings of War tournament report, this time March of the Great Armies of Pannithor. Needlessly long name for a tournament if you ask me, but there you go. And, of course, we've got a couple of things missing from your screen at the moment. We have my face, and I'm wearing a hat today. Very exciting touch there. And we've also got Mr. Yellow Arrow, who will be guiding your eyeballs around the screen. So, it's Abyssal Dwarfs again, and this tournament was at Black Dragon Miniatures. 4 games, 2,000 points, no turn 7s, so every game finishes at the end of turn 6, which makes things a bit different to most of the tournaments, and the scoring system at Black Dragon is always a bit different as well. There's no bonuses for how much you win the scenario by, and about half of the points that are available are kill point based. So if you draw all your games, but kill practically everything, but draw the scenarios, then you can still potentially win the tournament. So lots of points available for killing, and it doesn't matter how much you win the scenario by. If you just win it by 1 victory point, it's the same as if you win it by 8. So let's go through my list, shall we? It's very similar to the last tournament because there's not much time between the two, so I didn't have time to test out anything too crazy. The main difference is that Infernox has been taken out because I don't need to be winning the scenarios by a larger margin, so I don't need as many scoring units, and he's been replaced by a mortar, third mortar, and we've also switched around some of the artifacts as well. We've got a few people in the chat already. We've got Brendan, Raphael, we've got Daniel, who says nice hills, very natural feel to them. Yeah, I come across a lot of hills like that just in the countryside. Perfectly shaped there. Very natural indeed. So, my list. We've got Horde of Black Souls, we've got some Gargoyles, and they've got the Warbow of Cabba this time. Trying a little upgrade on them. There are times where they're just sitting on an objective and there's nothing for them to do. They might as well just plink a shot away at somebody. That, it could help. Then we've got the Half-Breeds with the Blade of Slashing there. Then we've got 2 Hordes of Lesser Obsidian Golems, as usual, making up the main core of my army there, along with the Greater Obsidian Golem between them there. No upgrades on the Hordes this time. Got the 3 Mortars, you can see at the back here. One of them is represented by the Katsu-chan rocket launcher model, just to add a bit of variety. I don't want them all to look the same, and the other one is still this big golem with a puff of smoke coming up his belly. And then we've got a Hexcaster. The Hexcaster has weakness and Hex this time, because I had a few extra points to spare. So potentially hex enemy casters, or just use it to get the extra range for his, it's basically a lightning bolt attack. Then, Bob is here for some hand spotting. Well, we can see some very blurry opponent hands already there. Looks like he's doing some kind of pre-game dance ritual of that kind of blurry hand action. Then we've got an Iron Caster with Surge and Heal. He doesn't have Fireball, so that shaves a few points off his cost. And then we've got the Overmaster on Ancient Winged Half-Breed, who in this game is down here, and he's got the Staying Stone just to put him up to 18-19 on the nerve. So, a few artifacts changed around, more firepower, but no Infernox as compared to the last tournament. Now, this first game, you can see that there are lots of tokens around the place. So this is Pillage, which is where you have the objectives around battlefield, and sitting on them at the end of the game, get a victory point. Fairly simple, and I'm against salamanders, and you'll know recently I played a practice game against some salamanders. Raphael says a corn symbol in Pannithor. Yes, there is a corn symbol. This tournament was pushing Black Dragon pretty close to capacity, I think. There wouldn't have been much space for more games, so it's probably stretching their terrain limit as well, which is why some of it looks a bit mismatched, I would imagine. 20 players, and it is only just a small-ish shop. So, my deployment, let's go through that. On the right here, we've got the big Beastie of Doom, got Half-Breeds as well, so a bit of a speed theme to this flank. We've got the Black Soul Horde there, and then we've got all my unkillable wall stuff there. We've got the Gargoyles at the back, which obviously means they don't want to be shot by something when they're positioned that far back. And we've got all the mortars pretty much in the middle. So, this piece of terrain here, we agreed not to use the base as part of the terrain because it was so big and it was going to be a big piece of blocking terrain. We thought there's just not enough of the battlefield available for us to use if we use the entire thing. So we just use the tower as the terrain and just ignored the base. Usually I would use the base, but the base is so much bigger than the tower. In this instance, we decided that that was just regular ground there. So my opponent has some scouting units as well in his army. So these are, let's have a look. I've actually got my opponent's army list right here. So these are Ember Sprites, and they can scout, which in this scenario it's not as handy as some of the others because you want to be set on these at the end of the game rather than at the beginning. And then we've got this blob of death in the middle. We've got some Rhinosaur cavalry, a horde. We've got a greater fire elemental there. And we've got an Ancients regiment. So they are pretty tasty defense 6 guys. And then we've got this big gigantic horde right here. And they are, what are they? Salamander Primes. And they've been given an Iron Resolve item. So you're going to see there's lots of ways for these units to get their wounds back. There's a Fire Elemental horde there. Behind them there's a Phoenix. There is a little hero down there, I'll tell you that in a second, and we've got a big flying beastie right here. So this is... who is that? That's Clan Lord on Fire Drake. So there's 2 heroes actually, there's one there, and there's one, I think he's moved with a scout move. There's some more sprites there, and there's an individual that's scouted up as well, but I don't know if there's a picture of him. The individual that's scouted up is Tackle, and he is a bit of an annoying duelist individual with some ranged abilities, and can kick some butt. And this guy is a mage. So he's got Shroud of the Saint, giving him extra heal. Phoenix also has heal abilities. It has heal 5 for a star, and then it also has the Radiance of Life, which I believe just puts a wound back onto units. So the Iron Resolve on the Horde and all this healing around the place. So I'm going to have to focus fire to take things out in one go before they can heal all the wounds back. Very important there. And the objectives. So there's 2 on the right hand side of the table as I look at it. There's one of them. And on the left, there's these 3. And these are the 3 I want to claim. I only want 3 of them. I'm sending all my juiciest units at this area. And everything I've got on the right, apart from the Horde of Black Souls, is fast. So if I need to get them over here towards the end of the game, then I can. But this is the area I want, this triangle. Ideally, I want the Gargoyles to have this one, because I don't want them getting involved in the fight, really. These 2, I want to push forward with my golems and control these. See how far the enemy advance, because we've got this kind of a choke point here between the 2 big pieces of terrain. Turn 1. So I go first, and I don't remember who won the roll-off, but I have gone first. I'm hiding the gargoyles behind these golems because the enemy do have some shooting attacks on their little flamey units, and gargoyles will just die in one hit and then deny me a victory point later in the game. So they're just going to stay alive. Everything else moving up. By the way, one thing I discovered in this tournament, actually, is that I've been cheating myself out of an inch of speed on my Greater Obsidian Golem for my entire run in this edition, because I'm pretty sure it used to be speed 5 in the last edition, and I had no reason to think it would have changed, but it has actually gone up to 6, and I haven't been using that at all in any of my games, so I could have been getting some extra speed out of this big guy, because I've just been running him as speed 5 in every single game. I only found out on the final game of this tournament, so what can you say, apart from it's going to be even better in the future now? Daniel predicts that first turn, mortars shoot at rhinosaurs, 10 wounds, waver or dead. Well, that would be nice, wouldn't it? Let's see. So, I've moved the Black Souls up. The half-breeds are hanging back, though, because they're very vulnerable to shooting, so they're staying behind the hill, so this unit can't shoot them down. Got the Flying Beastie here. He's just providing a bit of a threat at the moment. I don't need to throw his life away right now. And what do the mortars do? Well, they actually delete the fire elementals in the first turn, not the Rhinosaur cavalry. So the rhinos here were actually out of sight of some of the mortars. So I mostly targeted the fire elementals with 2 of the mortars and killed them 1 round, which is very, very nice. It didn't actually do a huge amount of damage, but I got a nice nerve roll on them as well. So that was quite good. It was a reasonable amount of damage though. And when I'm taking golems and there's this big piece of terrain here, it's difficult to get the correct lines of sight sometimes. So this one, for example, I only really shoot at the fire elementals, and I think I probably fired this one first, and then when it hits, I think, okay, I've got to fire something else at them now, because I need to actually finish that off and not just spread the wounds around and let them all get healed back. So you've got to focus fire, take out the elementals, they are toast. So 1 scoring unit down, turn 1, very nice. Keeping the flyer back though, because there's some pretty annoying shooting attacks available around here, and I don't want to go into charge range or anything and get bogged down. I'm just going to hang back for now. Don't need to rush onto the objectives, just need to be there at the end of the game. Turn 1 for the salamanders. You can see this big flyer was out here as well. That's something I don't want to get charged by. It's not quite as deadly as my flyer in terms of crushing strength and in terms of its close combat stats, but it does have more attacks, so it probably roughly evens out. And this one has a bit of a ranged attack, so about equal. And they're not too eager to advance probably because they don't want to get charged by my flyer either. Everything pushing up a bit. Obviously there's no need for units like this to go into charge range or any of my units, because they're faster than everything I've got over there. These little guys are moving up, and they put 2 wounds onto these golems, which is annoying with their ranged attack. So it's wounding on 6s, but they still manage it. And Article has just jumped through my lines here, and he's going to go after my mortars, but there's nothing I can really do about him. I don't want to be protecting the back of the table with any of my units, because I need to be in the middle at the end of the game, and I don't want to be all the way back there with my really slow army. So I'm just going to let him go after the mortars if he wants. Hopefully he'll kill less than 1 a turn, and he can just spend the whole game fighting them for all I care, because he's actually got an ability that is more powerful when he attacks titans, I think. If that's the guy I'm thinking of. Monster Hunter, yeah, there we go. So he's more powerful when fighting against titans, so I would rather him not use that to chip away at my, for example, Greater Obsidian Golem. But he does kill a mortar with only 2 damage on it in the first turn. So he rolled a 10 to kill it immediately. So that's not a good start, lads. And so what am I going to do now about that situation? Because I can't just fly straight forward and look down the flank of the enemy the way I would like to do. But I can actually fly forward to about here, look down the flank of the enemy, keep this thing in my front, and threaten with the half-breeds, because this thing isn't going to kill my ancient winged half-breed in 1 round of combat. So if it wants to charge me and then get charged, counter-charge, and a charge from the half-breeds, possibly in the flank, then it can feel free to do that because it will die. And over here, I'm going to charge the golems in there because I need to get rid of that unit because they're going to be annoying otherwise. And then everything else is just going to not overly commit because I don't want to get just multi-charged and flank charged all over the place. I've got this tower here protecting my flank at the moment, so I don't want to advance past that unless it's necessary. Turn 2 for me. So this is the position I've got flyer in. Exactly what I said, looking down the flank of the enemy. This guy wants to charge me, feel free because the half-breeds are waiting just out of shot here. There they are, so they'll be in range to charge anything that lands right there. I am allowing this guy the chance to fly out of my charge arc and just land here, in which case I'm just going to totally abandon this flank, fly off, try and hit something. The half-breeds will probably run away as well. And that guy can just do what he likes. Okay, we've got the Hexcaster here. What does he do? Well, he puts weakness on Article. Is it Article? Is that some kind of joke related to the word article or artacle, maybe? Who knows? Anyway, he's weak, and I'm not really worried about putting weakness on him specifically, unless he wants to charge one of the mortars. But the main thing there is I want to put damage on him and try and kill him, because I've got nothing else to chase him with, so I just want to hurt him a bit. And the mortar we get some damage onto the rhinosaurs. So it looks like there's only 3 on there. And this one, the new model that I've got, can only really fit 1 crewman on there because you can't fit a member of crew on either side of this machine on the base it comes with. And I didn't want to turn it to a weird 45-degree angle to fit the crew onto the base. And this guy, he only fits between the bits of the machine here because I've put an extra bit of cork for him to stand on to elevate him because he's kind of hunched over. So that's the only reason he fits at all. So obviously they're designed originally to be separate models. The crew are supposed to be on square bases just hanging around with the model, but I like to have it all on the same base. So that one does lots of damage to this big greater earth elemental, so that's a good start there. I believe the purple is 5, so that looks like 8 damage on him, so a good start. And I'm focusing on things I feel like I can kill. I'm not going to just plink damage away onto this big Iron Resolve horde with healing nearby, unless I have to. I wanted to go after things that I can actually take out, as long as I can see them, of course. So these golems do kill the Ember Sprite Regiment, and they've just turned back towards the battle now, so they're going to be a bit late to the party, but that's the token that the gargoyles want to claim. And the gargoyles were just hiding. They're running away because our tackle is hanging out somewhere over here, and I don't want him to just shoot them off in one turn, so they're hiding him at all costs. There he is. So with his duelist ability, he could go after my individuals, but he seems to be dead set on taking out the mortars instead. Turn 2. So this flyer does land outside of my charge arc, which is, I considered that an acceptable risk here, because I can fly away from him and he's not facing anywhere to be threatening at the moment if I just run away from him. Because if I got into a position where he couldn't land out of my arc, then I would risk not being able to see things in the middle as they were advancing. So Artie, as we're going to call him, has moved up and he's going to shoot this thing. And we've got a triple charge on my Black Soul Horde here. Now I expect them to survive this, because this unit is barely going to do anything. This Greater Elemental doesn't have that many attacks. How many does he have? To Fire Elemental. He's got 8 attacks, hitting on 4s though, so he's not going to do much. And the Rhinosaur Cavalry do hit hard, but this is a very high nerve horde we've got right here. 21-23 with defense 5, so I would expect them to be wavered from that, possibly. They could be killed because they're not inspired, but it's nowhere near a guarantee. But if they do get killed, it's not that big of a deal, I would say, at this point, because if the rhinos turn to face that way to get involved in the game, or if they stay facing this way to advance down here, perhaps to try and get behind me, that is going to leave them open to a charge from my Overmaster on Ancient Winged Halfbreed. So they would have to turn to face him, which is going to keep them out of the main area which I want to contest, which is the triangle I was talking about is like there. So if I can just keep enemy units over here on these 2 objectives, then I can claim this area here. But we'll see though. So Artie puts 2 damage onto a mortar, but doesn't kill it this time. And this uses its Flaming Breath attack and puts 2 damage onto my Ancient Winged Halfbreed there. I believe some damage is healed off. I think the rhinos get all their wounds back as a result of healing, because that's just how salamanders roll, apparently. Can't kill them, they just heal. 11 wounds done to my horde, which isn't enough even for a waiver, so that's good. This flank is now open to my flyer. It's a risk that was taken, and see, swoop, it's going to go right in there, and the half-breeds don't want to get charged by this thing, so they're just going to head this way, pretty much. I'm abandoning the right flank now. Turn 3, so the golems steady march towards the combat zone. The gargoyle's just going to hang out on this objective until the end of the game, hopefully. Moving forward here, and attempted surge from the Greater Obsidian Golem there into this horde, but didn't quite make it. I think he was 1 inch short. So had I known that he has slightly more movement and wasn't moving him along at just 5 inches a turn, then he could have actually made that. Which wouldn't make a huge difference. It would get me hurting this unit earlier, because it's going to be difficult to break through them. And the unit strength of this horde is higher than my horde there. So I need multiple units to control this one. They're not going to die. So look at this. Black Souls countercharge into the Rhinosaurs. Ancient Half-Breed into the flank. Do a zillion wounds. Double 1. And I actually said, because I've got about 4 sets of dice that I use for nerve checks, and sometimes I'll switch them out because I've got so many that I got from tournaments, and I was thinking out loud, right, which set of dice do I trust to not roll a double 1 here? And I picked up a nice little pair of these gold-pipped Northern King's dice, and first time they were rolled up the whole day, and it's a double 1. So that could put a cat amongst the pigeons, as they say, because I was pretty confident once this unit dies, that's going to be just easy pickings now, because I'll be able to turn a bit to get this Phoenix in the front. If the Phoenix wants to fight me, that's fine, it's not going to win. If the Elemental wants to fight me, it's probably not going to win either. And I'm just tying up all these units and stopping them getting into that bit of the fight. But the fact that I've double 1'd them means that potentially I could lose both these units next turn. But we'll see. So the half-breeds have run off, and had I known this was going to be such a disaster, I could have left them kind of pointing in this direction a bit, but can't plan solely to get double 1s. And very disappointing. And I think Hexcaster has weakened this horde as well. Knowing that they're going to be able to charge him next turn, it's now going to be very difficult for them, taking away their crushing strength. Oh, we've got a hand spotted here. Look at that. Bit of hand sinew there, or perhaps a vein. Turn 3 for the Salamanders. So we've got a charge here into the Greater Obsidian Golem, while weakened, but got to start trying to do the damage somewhere. So the Rhinosaurs have countercharged into my big beastie. Article's gone after the mortar again to try and finish it off. And see that angle there. So nothing has charged into the Black Souls because my opponent wants to shoot them instead. So he wants the breath attack from this flyer and the shooting attack from this unit to go into the Black Souls to try and kill them. And the Earth Elemental, who was over there, decides that he's going to turn that way and be surged into these golems here to kind of block them off and stop them joining in with this fight. But he's already damaged, so I don't think they'll take more than a round to finish him, because the healing, I don't think, has been focused on him. You can see the Phoenix is actually over here. So there's some healing love being spread to the Rhinosaurs, I think. So what damage is done? Well, look at this. So the Ancient Winged Half-Breed takes 10 damage, but he's 18-19 and self-inspiring, so I would expect him to survive that, but no, he's dead. So double 1-ing the Rhinosaurs, who have then been healed back quite a few of their wounds as well, and now. But the Black Souls are clinging on to life though, despite those shooting attacks, so they're going to have a turn to be able to finish off that unit. And Mortar goes down. So it's not looking too great, but I'm still quite confident in the scenario here. I'm still in position to claim the objectives I want. It's just looking bad on this flank due to that double 1. And over here, 3 damage in this combat. You can see my little wound marker trays have been painted to match my bases now, because for some reason, I'm sure I used to have about 15 of those trays, but the number of them dwindles after each tournament, so presumably other people don't paint theirs and then just accidentally pick up some of mine. So I'm painting them now, and a few people have given me some as well, so I'm going to paint those. Generous souls. Some people don't use them. And look at this very blurry picture, very amateurish there, but only 1 damage done to the Greater Earth Elemental, Greater Obsidian Golem, should I say, because these guys were weakened, so it was very difficult to chew through. It's going to be difficult for me to kill this horde, though, with their Iron Resolve and all the healing open to them. But I have got more total unit strength if I can chew through some of these units and not lose my Defense 6 wall. Let's see. Turn 4. So, the Black Souls finish off the Rhinosaurs, finally, even though it was a turn too late and it's cost us the life of the Overmaster. The golems plough straight through the greater fire elemental, which is very nice indeed. And the greater golem makes a start on these guys. Not too much damage, but got to start somewhere. Even if they heal all of it back, we've got to get in there sometime. Let's see, shouldn't Rhinosaurs be devastated and attack with like half their attack value due to bazillion wounds and double ones? I'm not sure they were actually devastated. I think, let's have a look at what their nerve is. Rhinosaurs. Dash 18. Okay, I think they took 15 wounds in total. When I say a bazillion, I just mean up to double one. I don't think they were devastated. I think they took 15 because I think I remember seeing 3 of the little purple circles behind them, which would be 15 wounds. So it's still double one, but I don't think they're devastated. I think that's how that works. And this unit is into the action slowly. I'm not going to have room for a triple charge on this unit at any point, but I am going to have space for a double charge. So we'll see how this works out, because there's another unit trying to get involved in the game as well up there. And there's also the Phoenix that might want to join the fun. So we'll see, it's going to be very cramped in this area. Half-breeds continue running away because they don't want to get charged by the flyer up there. They're just running towards this objective. They'll have one more turn running away, and then they'll just turn round, and if the flyer keeps chasing them and doesn't try and kill anything else, which would be okay with me, then it'll have one turn to try and kill the half-breeds. Which, on average, would it do that? Let's have a look at its stats. Should the Fire Drake kill half-breeds in one round of combat, which is what I'm planning to give it? Well, it's got 15 attacks and it hits on 4s, so let's be pessimistic and say that it gets 8 hits. Crushing strength 2, so it would be wounding on 2s, so let's say 7 wounds. On average, that shouldn't be enough to kill them. So, let's see. Turn 4. Article goes after another mortar. And these guys here, so these are the Ancients, they charge into the lesser obsidian golems there, and the horde of primes countercharge or charge back into this bad boy. So as soon as this happened, my thought was, okay, this gives me an opportunity here, because I was so jammed in that I'm not going to be able to get all my units in there. But if this unit backs away, I turn this guy, pull him back an inch, turn him that way, I can actually get him into the flank of the Ancients, which should, in theory, be enough to kill them, because he's an absolute monster. And if he does kill them, that means that the enemy unit strength drops by, the Ancients are unit strength 3, which is the same as one of my hordes, I think. Let's have a check on that. Because I know the enemy horde is more unit strength than my golem hordes. My hordes are unit strength 3, yeah, so the same as that regiment. So the fact that he's offering me that flank is very well received in this stage. Which is also, because these guys are going to have to move out, that's also going to leave space for the golems back here to charge into this unit as well. So, over here we've got the Fire Drake and the Ember Sprites. Double charge into the Black Souls to try and finish them off once and for all. And these guys get healed, so you can see they're only on about 2 wounds now. And a Waver on the Mortar, which is okay because he might actually stick around here fighting it again now, we'll see. I do like this model. It looks, when you're assembling this model, it looks absolutely terrible. It just looks awful. But I think once it's painted, it actually looks nice. And here, not much done. This guy's not going to die because I keep casting weakness on them, so got no chance of getting through. And here, a bit of damage done to this unit, but they're going to back away and they're not going to be too involved in a moment anyway. If all goes to plan. So the Black Souls are dead, which is expected at this stage. So the enemy are going to get an objective. There's one round here somewhere, and there's one all the way out on that flank that none of the enemy units really can get to now, unless they want to take themselves totally out of the game. Yeah, there's that one. So that unit will be able to go and claim that, but the other one's too far away. unless this guy had turned that way and immediately flew over there to claim it and didn't get involved in the game, which would have been basically accepting a loss, I think. Because if the half-breeds get this one, with my plan as it stands now, I should be able to claim this one, because if I can get all these 3 units in range of this, the enemy won't have enough if I can kill that unit. Then I would be claiming 3, which would mean the enemy would have 2. So if he just runs away and goes for that objective, it's not going to be enough to help. So, on to turn 5 for me. So the plan does succeed here. So these guys go backwards, leaving space for this guy to turn sideways. I can't remember whether he was able to charge directly in or whether he had to be surged to make it into combat there. And then this unit of lesser golems charge into the front here. So now he's able to turn back that way to face them. Got 2 units to fight them. This objective here currently is more than 3 inches away from them, but of course they can just move to get closer to it. And that's representing the weakness, I think. It goes without saying, this horde is constantly weak. That's my main target, unless I physically can't see it, which may happen at some stage. So we do a bit more damage on them as well, but not much. Very disappointing. So there's how that looks right now. You can see the Hexcaster looking through that crevice there to keep weakening them. And it's actually looking very healthy for me right now, because there's no way of pushing the Greater Golem back. Unless he kills one of my units, I'm going to be able to own this objective. My superior unit strength. And the half-breeds have made it to this one, so next turn they're just going to have to turn around and then defend it, probably. Gargoyles are chilling on this. And killed quite a lot of enemy units as well. There's only, really, this one, Phoenix, Fire Drake, and the sprites there, I think. Anything else is not. Turn 5, oh yeah, there's him as well. Article, going after the mortar again. So this is the Fire Drake, and it's put itself in a position so that it can charge my half-breeds, who can't get far enough away and still hold this objective. So they're going to have to turn around on the objective and stare down the enemy. Now, because there's definitely no turn 7, and this is turn 5 for the Salamanders, so this is their second to last turn. They're only going to have 1 chance to kill this unit. It also means, because I know I won't get a turn 7, I can't just camp out of range of this objective and jump in it afterwards. So you know exactly when the game's going to end, which makes it different to virtually every other tournament. It also means that I'm going to have to turn around these golems, though, to stop them being killed by this thing, because that would also be an option if my opponent chose to do that. And these guys are not going to do much at all, because they keep being weakened, very little damage output, because just wounding everything on 6s, they're not going to chew through it. And a bit of fiery breath into this unit does a bit of damage there. And Article finally kills. So the Gargoyles have hidden as well to make sure Article can't reach them with his shooting attack. But or if they didn't move, I made sure that he wouldn't be able to reach them before I left them there, previously. Or I'm about to do that, possibly, this turn. So, it's looking still pretty good, I think. And turn 6 for the Abyssal Dwarfs. So, double charge in here. More damage on them, but can't quite kill them. This unit turns sideways, so that they are now within 3 inches of that objective. And also they're protected in case this guy decides to charge them. It's now in the front, so it's very unlikely to kill them, especially since they're inspired right well. And I think I cast weakness on this guy as well, knowing that he is the crucial person right now. Because if he charges them with weakness on him, that means he's only going to be wounding them on 3s instead of 2s, and he already shouldn't have been killing them in 1 round. So it makes it even less likely now. If he were to charge into them, just bounce right off, I think. It's down to crushing 1. Gargoyles, yeah, they've done a little bit of a dance just to make sure that Article can't come and get them, because they are crucial to the victory at this stage. And there we go. So, turn 6 for the Salamanders. It all comes down to this. And look at this. So Article joins in with the fight against the half-breeds, which was wise. But even then, because he was weakened, they only did 8 wounds. So they still needed 8 to kill them. But they did it. So the half-breeds are dead, and this guy is now claiming an objective, which means we're probably heading for a draw right now. And my opponent, I'm not sure whether he just wasn't thinking about the unit strength, because he decides to double charge the greater obsidian golem, and even if he killed that, I still own this objective because I've got 2 hordes here. He's got a horde, and this phoenix is only worth 1. So I've actually got more unit strength on that objective, even if the greater golem dies. So maybe he just wasn't thinking about the unit strength, because he could have countercharged there on the off chance that maybe he could have taken them out. As unlikely as it would have been, they are inspired. But never know. It would have been worth it a try, though, to try and get a win out of the game rather than a draw. So the gargoyles are holding this objective. I'm holding this one with 3 units, and there's only 2 units there with a lower unit strength in total than mine. And these little ember sprites are claiming that one. And Fire Drake is claiming that one that he just took from the half-breeds. And that means it's a draw. So there you go. First game is a draw, 3 games to go. Now a draw isn't the worst in tournaments, because if you're going to submarine, as they say, where you get a low score and then work your way up the table later on, then a draw is a way of getting a reasonable amount of points and still avoid the top tables. But really, at tournaments, I think you've just got to take points wherever you can. You never know who you're going to face. So I don't think you should ever try and... I don't think anyone really intentionally sabotages games to be lower in the next round. People do sometimes think that it works out in their favour, the fact that they lost a game and then avoided some of the big hitters until right at the end of the tournament. But in general, I like to just take points where I can. So that game, I think the main issue was obviously that double 1 on the Rhinosaurs. If they were taken out, I think, would that have changed things? It might have changed things a bit, because this guy would have been probably fighting against my flyer as well, rather than just being able to chase my half-breeds over here. So he may not have been able to get to them by the end of the game. So probably made a big difference in the end, that double 1. Okay, on to game 2, and this time it is Plunder, and we're against the Abyssals. So Abyssal Dwarfs versus Abyssals. Plunder is, of course, where there are 5 tokens along the centre line of the table, and these are tokens that you can pick up. 2 of them are worth 2 points, 3 of them are worth 1 point each, and you take it in turns to pick one that's worth 2. So on this occasion, the ones that are worth 2 are going to be both on this side, and my opponent picked the first one and I picked the second one, which is why they're close together, because I don't want to spread out my army too much, because he's got more units that would be good at carrying tokens than I do. I think he's just got more drops in general and more scoring units. So you'll see that some of the tokens look a bit closer together than usual. That is because they can't be too close to blocking terrain. So they can actually be slightly less than 12 inches apart if the terrain dictates that, to my understanding of it. So on my right flank, we've got one mortar out on its own. When you see that, that's sometimes a distraction, hoping that the enemy will send something down there to chase after it, or it's just, I just want a different angle, because there's a lot of blocking terrain pieces in the middle of the tables at this tournament. There's usually been 2 hills or 2 big pieces of blocking terrain right in the centre, so it really cuts down on lines of sight, and because a lot of my troops are quite tall, they're going to be walking through those gaps often, then lines of sight are limited, so sometimes you have to spread them out. Got that one out there. We've got the Horde of Black Souls and the Half-Breeds, so what they are looking at is the cheap tokens here. I don't really want these tokens, but I want the enemy to have to commit resources to taking them. So the Horde of Black Souls there means the enemy can't just throw chaff that way and hope to pick them up and just hide, because a Horde of Black Souls would make short work of cheap enemy units. They're going to have to commit several units over here now. And the Half-Breeds and the Ancient Winged Half-Breed are chilling out right here as well, because they're kind of in the middle. but they're both fast, and I only want this area of the battlefield here because margin of victory in these games means nothing in terms of scenario. So if I just win by 1 point, it's the same as winning by 5. So I just want both of these expensive tokens here. So both these units are kind of a decoy. They can easily head off in this direction, if need be. It's only really the Black Souls that are committed to this area. And the mortar also means that the enemy can't just have one unit that takes a token and then sits there for the whole game, thinking that nothing of mine will commit over here to chase them, because this one mortar could just take them out at any point during the game. So they have to commit, and then that means they've not got as much to commit over here, which is where the main bulk of my is. So let's go through the rest of the deployment. This blob of doom here, we've got my golems, the hexcaster, the ironcaster, the gargoyles behind. There's a bit of enemy shooting, some flame attacks, they don't want to get killed. In this scenario, they're mainly going to be either blocking enemies in or chasing things down that are maybe running off with objectives if that happens. And he's going to have a similar role, chasing things down and threatening flanks, hopefully. See how the movement goes from the enemy. 2 mortars here, because this was quite a decent firing lane to some of the taller enemy units. You'll see them in a moment. And the greater golem here in the terrain, in case the enemy push right up, he can just charge out with his strider. Okay, so the enemy forces, we've got some gargoyles. We've got some lower abyssals. Right, we don't need that list anymore. On my lap. So, I think these have got the 2-handed weapons. They've got some crushing strength there. Then we've got more gargoyles. We've got 2 hordes of Molochs. And we've got an abyssal, I think it's just a cheap hero on a horse. We've got some abyssal horsemen, some cavalry. Not sure what they're called, but they're quite tasty. There are 2 units of succubi, which are lots of attacks. They have ensnare and stealthy, so they're just pretty tricky to deal with. Something like half-breeds wouldn't like to get hit by them with a lot of attacks. Then they've got this big monster here, and I can't remember what it is, but it's a big Titan-sized monster, and it's pretty nasty, but it's not the most deadly thing you've seen. I think these are flame bearers, 2 troops of them, and I think there's an Ifrit hanging around somewhere. There's a hero there, but is there a separate Ifrit somewhere, or is that the Ifrit? No, the Ifrit is back here. There he is. Blended in with the Moloch's shoulder there. It looks like a parrot sitting up there. So there's the Ifrit, and there's another hero around here. So, there are the objectives, and turn 1. So, my opponent chooses to go first, moves the gargoyles up, and everything else is just not too eager to advance that far just yet. These guys are moving up because Horde of Black Souls isn't going to be that scary to all this. It's right here. So it was a very, very short turn 1 for the enemy. Nothing was in shooting range yet. Newbie dice. Woot! First time catching this live. Well, very well done. Turn 1 for me then. Black Souls moving up. Because why not? We don't want the enemy to just get these and then back away. I want to get into a position to threaten them. Half-breeds have just moved up a little bit, I think, so if the enemy wants to come forward, they can be charged. This guy has just angled a little bit. I don't want to just fly into the middle because this monster is quite fast. There's fast cavalry here. So don't want to get charged, but in a position to threaten all this area if the enemy want to advance. And also in a position to see anything that charges these golems, which have poked just up onto the hill. They've gone a little bit further than this unit here, and my gargoyles are still hiding because they don't want to get flamed. And actually, both these units are on the hill. This one is actually here, but they kept falling off, so I just marked where the front of the unit was with this. So the hills are quite high with this little slope at the top, so everything that was on them was just sliding straight off. And the Greater Golem has just moved up as well, of course slower than he's supposed to because I keep thinking he's only speed 5 when he's actually more. And my Hexcaster moves out of the Gargoyle charge range by retreating, and then with weakness and a mortar, what do we do with our shooting this time? Well, put some damage onto these knights. It looks like a 3, but I can't really tell because there's glare on it. And 7 damage onto the Molochs with a mortar as well. I think they become wavered actually, so they can't do anything really next turn, they can't advance. Weakness on the gargoyles does 1 point of damage, So really, I just wanted to maybe waver or kill the gargoyles with that weakness. It may have been, I might have moved even further away and used Hex actually, just for the damaging portion of it. I can't remember. But actually, weakness, because look there, put that token on them to show that they're. So really, I just wanted to kill them rather than make them weaker, because they're not going to do anything to my defense 6 wall anymore. I don't want to have them at full strength getting into my war machines though. Turn 2 for the enemy. So gargoyles, these ones landed right in there, but they didn't have a pivot remaining, so they're not actually looking at my war machines, so I've got another turn to deal with them. This unit is a danger, so I'm going to have to cast weakness on them. I don't really want to waste golems turning around and surging them into gargoyles. That would be a total waste of time. So I'm going to hope that weakness can kill them. And even if it doesn't, it'll make them weak, which will make them less likely to kill off one of the mortars in one round. Because the mortars are 5s, so they would be wounding them on 6s. Over here, the Molochs decide not to advance particularly. These ones being wavered meant that the battle line decides to hang back a bit. This guy moves forwards, this big monster, and on this side they're a bit more confident. So, moving up with the flame bearers, and they're going to shoot at my Black Soul Horde, and they do 6 damage. 1 damage is done to these golems from the Ifrit. And again, pretty short turn for the Abyssals there. On to turn 2 for the Abyssal Dwarfs. So, Black Souls have moved up now into range to threaten the enemy units, so he'll have to decide whether he wants to shoot or charge me now, or back away. Half-breeds still not eager to go forward and get shot. They're just going to chill out up here in case anyone decides to charge the Black Souls. They'll have a juicy flank because it would be just hindered charge central. And in the middle, he's not really gone anywhere. He's stayed out of everyone's charge range, still providing a threat all around the battlefield. My gargoyles have turned round, you can see there. The golems have pushed right up onto the hill, so I've gone in charge range of all these units and inviting them to come and charge me because I've got them all in the front. I've got both units inspired, so bring it on. Good. Hexcaster. Weakness is the gargoyles to death, which is nice because now they can't get to my mortars. And what do the 2 mortars here do? They delete the unit of Molochs that were wavered last time. So that's nice. And also, one of my mortars put 6 damage, or got these knights up to 6 damage. They'd already taken a bit. My gargoyles are facing this way because the enemy gargoyle's there. If they want to turn around and come this way, they're now going to have some gargoyle on gargoyle action before they get to my mortars. So the Hexcaster is being used as in a bit of a defensive role for my war machines here, rather than weakening the enemy units, which can be just as important. It's a very potent ability, that. It's just a lightning bolt that always hits on 4s and isn't affected by anything when you're not using the weakness or the hex portion of the spell. So if you're using the hex one, it just has a 30-inch range, so it's like a 30-inch lightning bolt, which is very Turn 3 for the Abyss. So they do charge in. We've got a double charge from the Knights and the big monster here on these golems, and the Molochs into these golems. They didn't have range to do a triple charge, these ones weren't close enough to this unit. So it's a double and a single, and I would hope that both the units would survive. There's a chance this one could die though. It's possible. Gargoyles have just turned round, so I'm going to be able to charge them next turn with my gargoyles, so we'll see if that's effective or whether it's just going to be a pillow fight. And the Ifrit is chilling out back there with that hero as well. We haven't really taken the objectives yet, but all this shooting here, there's a hero with a couple of attacks there, ranged, and the flame bearers get these Black Souls up to 13 wounds, so I'm going to have to charge them in next turn to kill something before they just keep getting shot to death. But all these units here, surely a lot more expensive than this horde, which is the only thing that's really been attacked by them. So it's tying up all these units right now. Couple of damage from the Ifrit onto the greater golem there. So 5 damage to this horde, 8 damage to this horde, but they're both inspired, they're both absolutely fine, and next turn we've got some juicy options now. So let's see if we've got a wide shot of the battlefield. So this guy can be surged quite easily into the flank of the Molochs. This guy could join in the fight if he wants to. Got obviously all these frontal charges here, And the half-breeds can actually see the flank of these knights, which we determine after. I didn't want to check it during the turn, because my opponent might change his mind about whether he wants to charge them in or not if he knew the flank was open. So I was just keeping quiet, and then immediately at the start of the turn checked, and they could just see the corner of the unit. Turn 3. So, Black Souls take out one of the Flame Bearer units. Might as well take them out before we die. Chose not to pick up a token though, because they're probably going to get charged and killed next turn, and the enemy would then be able to just take the token off them rather than having to overrun to collect it. So making it a bit harder for the enemy to get the token. The half-breeds in the flank was enough to kill off the cavalry, which is very nice. The golems on this big monster did 8 damage, didn't kill it though. Golems in the front of the Molochs, and the greater golem in the flank, 16 wounds on the Molochs, double 1. A bit of a recurring theme here. Now I think that the Molochs are 15-17. If that's wrong, then someone correct me. I think that is right. So again, not devastated. And double 1. So it's a different set of dice this time, because the ones that got double 1 previously, I just didn't trust them again for quite a while. So got these blue ones out instead, and double 1 again. And that could potentially be fatal here, because I am going to need units to objectives at some point. Gargoyles on gargoyles, and I do 0 wounds, which means that they can either fight back, or they can just fly away. Fly over my head, because they haven't lost fly, they haven't taken any wounds. Mortars, what do? They put 3 wounds onto these lower abyssals, who are just hanging out waiting to go and jump on an objective, I think. So that double 1 makes it look... Can you imagine, if that unit was dead, it would be looking like pretty much game over for the enemy at this stage. They've got so many units tied up over there, not near the expensive objectives at this end. It would just be a mopping up operation, you would assume, if they died as well. Raphael says no dice can be trusted. They cannot. That is a fact. Turn 4 for the Abyssals. So, double charge onto the Black Soul Horde. I expect them to die now. Flame Bearers and the Succubus unit there. The other Succubus/Succubi goes straight into the half-breeds. Now, I told you that it's really this kind of unit half-breeds don't want to be charged by. Lots of attacks, because their defense isn't that great. They don't have an amazing nerve, so we'll see if they can kill them. The half-breeds actually picked up one of the tokens at the end of last turn, I think, from where they charged. They landed on one, so they've got one of the objectives, one of the counters. And the big boy here goes into... Luckily, he couldn't see the half-breeds, because I think he would have been able to get a charge on them if he could see them, but he couldn't. And the golems get charged by him. We've got the Molochs charging into these golems, so I'm hopeful that that doesn't... Newbie dice says 16-18 on the Molochs. Right, so yeah, it's even just higher than I thought, so definitely not devastated. And they have regeneration, yep. So I've still got my flyer chilling out here as kind of backup, which is I'm quite pleased with at the moment, because that double 1 could leave a hole in my lines, so I'm going to need that backup, actually. The gargoyles just swoop over the top of my gargoyles, so next turn they'll be able to go after a mortar. And the lower abyssals go and jump on this 2-point objective, which they're going to pick up and carry away with them, this token. And how does the combat go in the middle? So the Ifrit as well does some more wounds to the greater golem there. So the Molochs get this unit up to 12 wounds, but with the Inspiring they do not kill them, so they've been paid back for that double 1, I think, there. But this unit gets up to 12 wounds and they die, so 1 out of the 2 is toast. And he just turns around a bit afterwards. I actually think he overruns forwards, because he didn't want to be auto-flank charged by this unit here, because the greater golem's obviously going to flank the Molochs next time and finish them off. So he didn't want to be flanked by this unit. He wanted me to have to use my surge to do it, rather than using him to heal, probably. So he overruns, but I'm not sure he's actually gone far enough, because when they pull back an inch, I think they'll still be able to see him. And there's how that looks. And over here, so the Succubus unit only does 4 wounds to the half-breeds, which is way below what I would expect them to do. So not enough to even waver. The Black Soul Horde is dead though. And these two are going to be able to pick up tokens. So it's not looking quite as good as it could have done if this unit had just died when they were supposed to, but it's still looking okay. Turn 4 for the Abyssal Dwarfs. So the half-breeds charge back into the Succubus regiment, and the Ancient Winged half-breed joins in there as well, and double charge. So even though it's ensnare in the front, there were still enough attacks to finish them off. And the golems here, I did get the successful flank charge into the big monster. I can't remember whether they could just see the flank or whether it had to be a surge. I think it was actually they could just see him, because I've healed this guy. He's down to 3 wounds now. So he killed the Molochs, finished them off with a flank charge. He's got this token. He is now facing that way to try and get the other one from the unit that's chilling out up there with the tokens. Mortars, what do? Well, they kill that lower abyssal unit that was carrying the 2-point objective, so the greater golem is just going to head over there and pick it up in a minute. And I tried to cast weakness on the gargoyles. Didn't succeed though, so didn't do any damage to them. So my gargoyles have turned around and looked here. So if they want to charge one of my mortars, they're then going to get recharged, unless they want to kill it and then turn around to face the gargoyles, in which case that mortar would be safe for another turn. So it's still looking like it's going to be a win for me. And turn 5 for the abyssals, so gargoyles into the mortar. These guys are just chilling out in the difficult terrain. And look at this, so there is a double 1 here. The Ifrit puts more damage onto this unit, gets them up to 14, and then double 1s them. So that definitely pays back for the double 1. This is the unit that was involved in the combat that double 1'd on the Molochs. So I think that's fair payback now. Not that this unit is going to affect the game in any way, because they're not needed to hold any of the objectives. Only 3 damage on the mortar, which is nice, and not much going on over there, or in the middle really. So turn 5 for the Abyssal Dwarfs. So the half-breeds drop the token and charge into the Succubus regiment, because I've already got enough units to hold all the winning objectives, so I might as well try and get more kill points. So they charge in there, looks like 9 damage, but do not kill them. And the Greater Golem is just working his way towards this objective here. Gargoyles rear charge and kill the enemy gargoyles. And the Hexcaster and the Ironcaster are chilling out in there, and the Hexcaster's weakness puts some damage onto the Ifrit there. And this guy moved onto the token that the half-breeds dropped on the floor, so he's holding 1 now. So it's looking good, and this guy got wavered as well, the Ifrit, which is nice because now he can't be using his flamey attacks on it. Turn 6. So countercharge here from the Succubus regiment. The Flame Bearers have just gone to pick up that token, and they do. Half-breeds are killed, and there is a token under there, which they are going to overrun onto and pick up. And not much, the characters aren't doing anything, they don't want to get killed. So one thing I was thinking would have been an option, I'm not sure whether this guy had the range, but he could have moved around the front of the Greater Golem and sat on top of the objective, which may well have got him killed, but if it didn't get him killed, then that could mean that the Greater Obsidian Golem could then no longer get this 1-point objective, which wouldn't really help because I'm already holding 3 objective points and my opponent is only holding 2. So it wouldn't really help in terms of the win, but it would mean that I couldn't drop any tokens to then charge something. So turn 6. So this guy decided to drop the token he was carrying because I was already going to win the game regardless. drops it and then charges into the front of the Succubus regiment, finishes them off, steals their token, leaving that token on the ground. And the Greater Golem moves forward, picks up the other 2-point objective, and it's just an easy win. Weakness on the Ifrit actually kills it this time. So, almost a tabling. There's some Flame Bearers left, and there's this hero left, and I think that's it. So, very successful game, maximum points. Very nice indeed. And moving on to game B. So, we've got a draw, which was decent, a bit unlucky, and a massive win there. Game 3 is against Salamanders again. This is a different Salamander army though, not the one I faced previously. And I think I'm not sure if I've got the list for this one, but I've got some of the stats printed out for some of the units. Not all the units are the same between the two. So, this is Dominate, and the Dominate point is right there. So, immediately what strikes me is, normally with Dominate, when I've got 3 mortars, I'd be thinking, yes, I can just point all the mortars at the Dominate area, the enemy will converge on it, and they'll get blown to pieces. But there's a hill on either side of it, really. So the enemy can hide behind hills, whichever table side they got. There's big pieces of view obstructing terrain as well. There's one here, there's one there, that's pretty much out of the game, but there's 2 forests here as well. So lines of sight are not great. If you can't hear that, sounds like there's some kind of alarm going off outside. So the enemy can hide from my mortars is what I'm getting at, and still be in a position to strike onto the objectives. So what I'm going to do, to play with that, what I'm going to have to try is, if they want to stay out the zone until the end, I'm going to have to attack them and keep them stuck far away from the zone. The enemy also has superior unit strength to me. So, let's go through. I've got a mortar all the way out here. Now, this is purely positioned to try and make the enemy attack this corner of the table to keep them away from the Dominate zone. So we'll see which units they want to commit to that. And I've got the Greater Golem either protecting that. If anything wants to come this way, I can just turn and look at it and then charge whatever came in there. Or, if I can get round here, I can cut off, because this enemy battle line here, these 2 big hordes, which are the... what's the name of the big hordes? Is it... it's infantry. Is it the Ceremonial Guard? I think that's what they are in this list. I think that's it. So we've got 2 hordes of them. They are going to have to get into this area. So they're going to form kind of a line probably like that and start heading in this direction. So I can use him to threaten their flanks potentially if they want to come in to attack my main battle line, which is these 3 big hordes, which is the bulk of my unit strength in those 3 units there. Gargoyles are just going to be there to hop in front of something when the time comes, so that I don't get double charged, because we don't have any blocking terrain in the middle. We've just got the hills, which my golems can see over and can be seen over. And all the way out on that flank, I haven't got too much, but you'll see what's over there in a minute. I've got my casters chilling out down here. So there's the big blob of unit strength in the middle, in the Dominate threatening area. Got my flyer all the way out on this flank and the half-breeds. So you'll see what my plan is for them in a minute. I've got 2 mortars here overlooking 2 juiciest enemy units. I want to shoot these elementals off immediately. They are nimble elementals as well, because they have the Wine of Elvenkind, and there is something in there that can surge them. There's a cavalry unit there. There is a regiment of those nasty Defense 6 infantry, the Ancients. There's the 2 hordes. And there's a Fire Drake there. So there's also the Ember Sprites, there's one there and one there that have advanced up with the scout moves. Turn 1. Now if I'd got turn 1, I was hopeful to shoot off an enemy big unit instantly. I've had multiple mortars pointing at things, so I could potentially kill the elementals in the first turn. But my opponent won the roll-off and went first. Advances on this side with the hordes, and the flyer staying out of the charge arc of my greater elemental there. And at this point, remember, I'm still playing the greater elemental as if it's only speed 5, because I just never thought that it would increase I never thought to check the speed on it really. And if you're not looking for a change, then 6 can kind of resemble a 5 if you're just glancing over it. If anyone is watching this live, by the way, it says there's 12 of you right now. Feel free to comment along if you spot anything, or if you've taken any sweet, red-hot, sizzling tips from these games. So you can see he's measuring, and only measuring 10-inch charge there, because that's what I said it was, because I've just been playing it wrong. And the cavalry and the elementals immediately shuffle behind the hill to escape from the mortar's line of sight, which kind of works for my plan. The plan of being able to shoot them off obviously doesn't work now, but the plan of get them away from the dominate zone and then maybe pin them in place back there is still on, big time. The Embers sprites have moved onto the hill, so they're a potential mortar target, and these ones have moved up here to threaten my greater golem. And by threaten I mean not threaten at all, because they're terrible and wouldn't scratch him. So what am I going to do here? I'm going to advance, make sure I'm not offering up any flanks. I'm going to turn this guy to protect the mortar. Turn 1, so there we go. Protecting the mortar, I don't care if I get flank charged by them. I want to be flank charged, in fact, because that means that I'm not blocked from charging this fire drake if it charges the mortar. In the middle, I don't advance too far. I don't want the fire drake to potentially charge the golems in the flank, which is a threat at this stage, so they're not gone beyond the terrain, and the gargoyles are out of charge range of it. And this unit is out of range, so they've advanced a bit further. Black Soul's also moving up. We want to lay a claim to this area and win the fight, basically. Half-breeds have moved up out of the difficult terrain. Mortars, what do? They blow up the Ember sprites that were on the hill, and 5 damage onto this horde. But my opponent does have healing potential as well. So there's heal from this guy, and I think he's got Shroud of the Saint as well. And he can re-roll, might be elite with the heal, or he can just have re-rolls of it in general. I can't remember. There's all kinds of weird rules with the Salamanders and their ability to heal and get re-rolls and be close to other units and thus get re-rolls or become elite and things like that. So I've put my flyer staring down the line there. So if the enemy want to advance, they're going to have to get charged in the flank. If they're going to turn to face me, that's okay, because my plan is to just keep them away from this. Turn 2 for the enemy. So he does charge into the mortar. The big pokey head means that it has to be facing this way. The trees were removed here, but it does have a nice, attractive bit of cardboard underneath to show you where the trees are supposed to be. And the sprites charge into the greater golem, and who cares about that? So the knights make sure that they are in the front for a potential charge of my flyer there, because a flank charge would be fatal to them, but if they give a front, they're not worried about that. And the advance is on here. Ancients and the 2 hordes have moved up. And there's the dominator, the token representing the middle of the battlefield. So the mortar's dead, but now I'm going to be able to charge this thing. Hopefully I could waver it in one round, which would be great, because I've got Strider. And 1 damage done there. Moving on. So, what am I going to do now? Well, at this point I'm thinking, those 2 units are both really dangerous to my advance, and I want to advance a bit. And this unit has got a charge range of 12, I think, and there's surge potential as well. So, how long am I going to delay here? Because while they're out the dominate zone, these 2 units are as well, but there's more scoring, more unit strength there being held up outside of the zone, but they're also closer to it. So I have to decide when I'm going to attack these units and what plan I'm going to put forth to deal with them. Also, the fact that all the tall enemy units are hiding now means that my mortar has limited line of sight, so I'm going to have to turn this unit sideways in a minute. Turn 2 for me, so Greater Golem into the Fire Drake, 6 wounds, no waver, but I have damaged it, so it can run away. but it's not threatening the rest of my army if it's running away, which is what my objective was there. The mortars, 5 damage onto the ancients, and I also weaken them as well with the Hexcaster. There we go. So, here's my plan. The ancient winged half-breed flies into the front of this cavalry unit, so 4 damage. I was hoping to maybe get a waiver on them. 4 is a bit below what I would be. Is it below what I'm expecting to get there? Yes. Because he's got 9 attacks, hitting on 3s, probably get 6 hits, and then should probably be wounding with all of them, because he's got vicious and wounding on 2s. So I'd be hoping to do 6 and then maybe get a waiver on them. But only 4, so a bit below average there. Because I know that this thing can be flank charged by these guys, but the fact that they're not wavered means that it's a bit spicy. He could get killed now. With just them going in the flank without this unit in the front, I would be much more confident that he's got a chance of surviving flank charge there. So what my plan actually is, I'm willing to give up this guy though, because he's only unit strength 1, so for scenario purposes it's not much of a loss. So it's kind of like trading pieces in chess, I'm looking at it like. So I was hoping to waver them, so he's got more chance of survival, which means it would have been a risk for these guys to flank charge there, because I've got my half-breeds in position so that they've got their leader point on the hill, so they can see over it. They could flank charge any elemental unit that gets stuck here. And even if they kill them, they turn to face me, I would then be in range to charge over and hit the wounded cavalry unit here and probably kill them because they're already damaged, and in 1 round should be enough to kill them. The half-breeds do hit very hard. So I'd be killing this unit regardless, sacrificing this unit and then killing them with half-breeds, turning to face. So these guys would have to then be surged into me, which means that this guy can't be healing anyone. So it's quite a complicated plan, and it relies on successfully killing that unit, because if they charge in here, kill him, turn to face me, I charge them, and then completely mess up the dice roll and don't kill them, then I would then have a unit here surged into the flank of the half-breeds, which wouldn't be nice at all. So I did have the option to delay this plan until later in the game, which I would recommend possibly doing if you're in a situation similar to this, because there's more unit strength for the enemy tied up away from the scoring zone here. So maybe hold off until a bit later before you do this, so they don't have time to reach the dominate area. If it goes wrong, would be my suggestion. Maybe the plan's gone off a little early, but I think it's still a fairly decent idea. We'll see how it goes. You can see that this unit have had to turn sideways, so they're open to the potential really long-range surge of that unit, which would most likely fail and get this unit flanked by half-breeds. So it's not that much of a risk, because they probably won't do it. And I made sure that these ancients are in the front. I had to turn sideways so the mortars could see through to hit that unit. And golems have just made sure everyone's in the front and they're just on the hill there. Gargoyles hiding behind, ready to jump out next turn to block something off. Turn 3. So ancients into the horde. And it's going to be a long slog here if they're fighting each other. Not much damage is going to get done. The 2 hordes charge in here. And you'll notice, it's hard to tell actually because the units keep slipping, so let's go back. So you can see here that it's not abundantly clear, but because this unit is actually tilted because of the shape of the hill. But I've got this unit at a slight angle, so that they can't double charge this unit. Because a double charge from 2 hordes would kill the unit, really. So, and also it has the effect of, you're going to have to kind of take my word for it that they were actually able to charge there, because from here it doesn't look like they should be able to fit, but they can. It's just that units keep sliding off the hill and into different positions. So, the way I've got them angled here is that this unit is going to be ever so slightly further forward than this one, and at an angle. Which means that when these 2 hordes inevitably fail to kill my 2 golem hordes, this unit is leaving its flank open to this unit. And then just back away an inch, and straight into the flank, straight into the front, that horde will be dead. So, that's the plan here, and preventing enemy double charges. So part of that. The Beckhurst is here. Woohoo, Australian friendly live broadcast. Yes, it is. It's quite an early one today. And, well, who cares about being charged in the rear by Ember Sprites, really, when you're defense 6? Not me, that's for sure. So this flyer isn't going to hang around here, but he was still deciding what to do at this stage. Look at that nifty footwear going on. It doesn't look like there's any socks involved there. Is that a sock, or is that just the light on human pale flesh there? Interesting, because it was quite chilly. So, these guys back into the front, elementals into the flank. So, while the phase 1 of the plan didn't go 100% the way I wanted it, I was hoping for a waiver there, it can still work the way I described before. So this guy runs away because he can still do one pivot. So he backs away an inch, pivot, and just fly away, or run away, should I say, because he can't fly. Just goes away 10 inches to escape, get out my charge arc. And so look at all those wounds done to my Ancient Winged Half-Breed. So it's dead, but this unit is going to have to turn to face me, which means they're not immediately protecting this unit. So 8 wounds on this Golem Horde, which is more than I would be expecting them to do, I think. But only 2 on this one, which is less than I would be expecting them to do, probably. So, on average, that's probably about right, but I would rather have 2 units on about 5 damage, because then I can heal a couple of wounds back, and maybe get them to 3, which would be great, because a Horde isn't probably going to kill them with that level of damage in one more round. It seems to be raining outside, hopefully that's not causing too much of a noise on the microphone. 2 damage there from that rear charge, which is nothing. And the plan is still looking okay. So, this situation, like I said, I've got a flank charge on this unit. They're going to be just absolute toast unless I double one them, which based on the last 2 games is definitely possible. Not much damage done in this combat here, and these guys have been healed up as well. Turn 3 for me. So the Greater Golem countercharges the annoying little Ember Sprites and kills them, and is now looking back towards the middle. The flank charge and the front charge go off successfully. I mean, look at this mess, everyone just falling off the hill because it's so lumpy. You get the idea. So I think I've made a little bit of a mistake with the positioning of these units after combat though. I should have left these guys facing forwards, because as it stands, if they charge into the front of this horde, then I don't have any options for a flank charge there, particularly, unless I get some kind of cheeky surging involved. But even then, once they hit there, they'll slide down here, so I don't have the option to then get a flank. But if I'd left them facing kind of that way, then maybe it would have been possible to get a flank. I don't know though, because my opponent does have units here blocking up, so they are going to slide quite far that way when they hit. So I'm not sure it was possible anyway to set them up for a future flank. We'll see though. My gargoyles just fly out into the middle of nowhere, and this was kind of a lazy move I think here, because I've actually put them in range where the enemy flyer can come and flame breath them, because I forgot it had a ranged attack at this point, so they are potentially in danger. They could have flown somewhere else. The Ancients and these guys are still just slugging it out. I only do 1 wound there. And this situation here, look at this. So, half-breeds charging in unhindered into enemy cavalry. Hitting on 3s, wounding on 3s. They're already on 4 damage. With 16 attacks. So I should be doing considerably more than 4 wounds, shouldn't I? It's just a really disastrous dice roll, and I only waver them, which means that now these guys can be surged into the flank, which is just going to be death for the half-breed instantly. They should be dead, meaning I should be turned to face this unit, meaning it's more of a risk to surge them into the front. There's no guarantee they'll kill them in 1 round, which means they could then be locked away from the objective for longer. But as it stands, they now have an easy kill there, and both these units are alive. So 2 poor dice rolls when attacking this unit has let me down here. The first one, where I would hope to waver them with my flyer, which was no means a guarantee, and that was an intentional sacrifice though. And then this unit going in, I was not intending to only waver them here. I would not like them to be alive, and I want my half-breeds to be facing that way. But alas, it looks like the half-breeds are going to be toast, and I would say it's looking very unhealthy now. Because this unit is probably going to die from being charged, because they're on 8 wounds, so it wasn't even worth trying to heal them this turn, really. because I'm going to heal maybe 1 or 2 wounds back, which isn't going to save them. When they're on 6 or 7 wounds, they would almost certainly be killed by a charge from one of these. The Greater Obsidian Golem is kind of out of the game a bit, but that's not really an issue because he's only unit strength 1. And he did chase the flyer away to stop it affecting the game. Turn 4, so a charge here from the Horde. And you can see what I'm saying about it would have been difficult to set up a flank charge here. As it is, if they fail to kill this Horde, then possibly I could have got one with a bit of sidestepping and surging, but they're likely to kill them. And look at this. Surged into the flank, so the half-breed's dismal failure to kill this unit has led to them almost certainly dying now. The gargoyles, who could have landed anywhere really, but they chose this one spot that this guy could actually reach them, and they are now wavered as a result, so that was a poor move there. The golems are dead here, which is kind of expected after being charged by this unit. But I've got a charge there, this unit's pretty unhurt, and we'll see how it goes now. But I'm not confident anymore after the left flank failure from the half-breeds. And here, a bit more damage done to them, but really, these 2 units are going to take even longer to kill each other because this unit doesn't have many attacks and they're defense 6, so it's just a bit of a pillow fight. And I keep casting weakness on them as well, I think. So the half-breeds are dead, and both these enemy units are alive. Now, this one is heavily wounded, so it would be prime, juicy target for a mortar, but it's not currently in sight. So it was kind of an all-or-nothing move, which probably should have worked, but it wouldn't have necessarily won the game, but it would have made this situation a lot healthier. And it would have meant that these guys would not be in a position to threaten down here. But as it stands, because the half-breeds are dead, and these guys were able to fight them kind of on their terms and guarantee the kill, means that I've now got 2 enemy units looking down into this area now. So it's not looking good at all, and I'm going to have to try and salvage something here. Turn 4 for me. So another charge in here, but again, just not scratching them really. Mortars. So I decided to mortar this horde that were on the hill and then surge this unit into them, so I could hopefully do some damage to them first. And I've actually done a reasonable amount of damage to them there. The Hexcaster is constantly weakening this unit, I think, or maybe I weaken the Fire Elementals this turn. Yeah, there we go. So they were already damaged from being hit by something. I think the mortars may have hit them, and got them up to 10 wounds with weakness, but can't remove them. So I just can't roll good nerve rolls at the moment either, so it's not looking good. Gargoyles just spin round a bit because what else is there? He's kind of out of the game, especially since I'm moving him an inch slower than I'm supposed to, because I don't discover until the next game that he's actually speed 6. Turn 5 for the Salamanders. So these golems are charged in the flank by Fire Drake, in the front by the Horde. They'll probably die now. And what's going on here? So there's some healing going on. And the Horde is dead there. Up to 12, so they are toast. And over on this side, gargoyles are ignored. So the Horde of Black Souls are also dead. They were flanked by the Elementals there, of course, so they're toast. So looking very unhealthy now, and it's definitely going to be a loss. But it's one of those where you think it could have all been very different. There were a couple of mistakes in there. Some of them didn't affect the game, like the gargoyles being positioned there hasn't affected it too much. But up here, was it a mistake to go for that plan so early in the game instead of just use my flyer to just stare at the enemy and threaten them and hold them there until late and then go for the attack? I wanted to go for it early because I was quite confident in it succeeding. But alas. Because I was hoping that if I lost my half-breeds and my flyer, that both these units would be dead and that would be a lot of enemy unit strength gone. But the fact that that didn't work, combined with a bit of bad luck, not a huge amount, but some in the centre here, with this golem unit taking a lot of damage in the first round of combat. I didn't like that either. Turn 5, so this guy's just slowly getting into the game. Can I mortar off the enemy units? Well, slowly chipping away at them, but they're going to keep getting healed. And, oh yeah, the main thing, it wasn't so much the damage rolls my opponent was doing were good in this game, they were just standard. It was mainly the fact that when I was damaging and hitting with the mortar, my opponent would then heal 5 out of 6 dice, or 6 out of 6 every single turn. I think by about turn 5 there was only about 2 dice that failed to heal something, so that didn't help. And look at that action there. You can see a human hand moving unit here. So there's not much to do on my turn. But I think I used the warbow of KoW with the gargoyles and just left them lazily in a position where they could be charged for some reason. And turn 6, the enemy charging there with the cavalry, gargoyles will die. Everyone else is being attacked now. And it's not looking too healthy. Mortar gets wavered from 1 point of damage. And this guy goes for the Ironcaster. A couple of gargoyles dead. And whizzing through now. Turn 6 for me. This guy can just move into position. And Hexcaster and Mortar can try and finish people off, but no. No wounds done. Can't even kill that unit. Mortar hits nothing. So there's how it looks at the end. And maybe some mistakes in there, but also some below average attacks and nerve rolls as well. So really, I think if you're taking a risky ploy, if you're not in a bad position to start with, why risk it, I think? Because I had the superior speed on the left flank, there was no reason really for me to rush into that combat in turn 2. I could have held off for a couple of turns, which would have meant that the enemy were way out the dominate zone with some decent scoring units, and they also came in and tipped the balance in their favour in the fight between the units here as well. So I could have pinned them back for longer, just in case it goes wrong, but if it goes really well for you, you've then got your units to potentially join in the combat, so it's tempting, but I think my position was looking okay. It was just too early to execute that plan, possibly, so that when it did go horribly wrong, due to the abysmal dice, then it left me in a poor position. So there is something to learn from that. Even in a game where your dice rolls let you down, there's usually something else you could have done as well that could have changed things. So there were other options I had. There was also the choice to, this guy, he was kind of out of the game and not involved too much, because I put him out there to counteract the flyer, which did kind of work, but I could have maybe used his hitting power in the middle to deal with some of these nasty units as well that were in there, because I was so close to winning the battle for the hill between all the hordes that maybe he would have tipped it in my favour, and maybe this guy would have still flown off to fight the mortar regardless, which would have taken him a little bit out of it. So there's a loss, meaning we move into round 4 with a draw, a win, and a loss. So I'm not too poorly positioned in the table though, because it was a massive win, the one I did get. So pretty decently positioned going into round 4. Now this is push scenario. So we rolled to see how many tokens each side gets, and we have 2 tokens each and 1 in the middle, and this is against salamanders again. So you may recognise this is the army that I faced in round 1. So 3 out of 4 games against salamanders. I should be used to them now, although going into this game, I haven't beaten salamanders in this edition yet, that I can recall. If I have, then I've totally forgotten about it. But I can pick up this list again, since it's the same list that I faced in round 1. And push. So there's a big piece of blocking terrain there, which the Phoenix is hiding directly behind. I've got my flyer out on this flank. I've got a mortar behind. I've got a big wall of death in the middle. The Greater Golem is carrying one of the push tokens. I've got my Black Soul Horde over there carrying another push token. I've got the half-breeds there as well. And I've got 2 mortars on this side. So the enemy, if they want to deploy anything over here to deal with this horde, is going to have to be a significant thing that they're going to have to use. This is my opponent's right flank as I look at it, and there's a token on the horde of Salamander Primes, there's a token on the Ancients, and there's the Rhinosaur Cavalry, who don't have a token of course, because that would slow them down horribly, so that would be a terrible idea. There is the Ember Sprites there, who have scouted up, Phoenix behind the terrain, because it doesn't want to get mortared off, Fire Elementals, Greater Elemental, and a hero all behind the hill there. That will be the priest there probably. And there's Artacle scouted up as well with the other Ember Sprites. Then there's the Fire Drake over on that side, staring at my horde who are carrying a token. And if he wants to attack that horde, that's fine, because they've got high nerve and they're only carrying one token after all. So the half-breeds are really there to provide a bit of a distraction, so the enemy can't just go straight up and take out my war machines like in game 1 like this guy did. They have to actually hang back a bit now. Turn 1. So, of course, the enemy win the roll off and get turn 1 again, like in the previous game, when it would have been useful to be able to mortar things off, but the flyer's moving up. But because of my half-breeds, it can't just fly up willy-nilly, which is kind of why they're there, to stop the enemy just pushing straight onto my war machine area. This side of moving up with the tokens, though, which is always handy in push, and the Phoenix is just repositioning a little bit behind the terrain there. And a few weird angles and positionings here. So the half-breeds take a lot of shots from all these guys, and Artacle, I'm not sure if he was in range, but the Ember Sprites, 8 wounds in turn 1, so they're wavered now, which is not too bad because they can just go backwards anyway, so the enemy spend another turn dealing with them. And the more units I can bring to this side of the table, the less units are defending the area I actually care about, which is here. I want to take my objective, pick up that one, kill the enemy units over on this side and hold their objectives, which means the enemy may be stuck with just this one. They're going to have to commit a few units if they want to kill this horde, I think. So I think I've got a big advantage in all this against that. So I just want to make sure that the enemy are stuck and don't send units to reinforce from this side now. Turn 1 for me. So the half-breeds back up, so the enemy are going to have to deal with me for another turn. I'm not just throwing myself out there suicidally, they're going to have to advance to get me. The Black Souls just go straight up. And they're offering, I think they're offering a flank charge to these Ember Sprites, but I'm not really scared of that. And offering a front charge to this Fire Drake there, which would be okay because it would mean they're over here fighting this horde when there's just one token available here, and they're not going after my mortars. So what does this mortar do? Combined with weakness from the Hexcaster, they put a few wounds and weakness onto the Rhinosaurs, which is always nice. My Ancient Winged Half-Breed flies up and stares down the enemy flank. So we know how well that worked out last time I faced this army, because I got a successful flank charge in and then double one the unit. But let's see what happens this time. Staring down the flank, so they're going to have to turn to face me and open up flanks to maybe other units, or they're going to have to advance and just get flanked. We'll see what they do though. So, advanced everything up, level with each other. Okay, so they shouldn't really be. Actually, this guy should be slowed down to speed 5 now, because I've always been playing him as speed 5, but he's actually speed 6, so he will be speed 5 because he's carrying this token. And turn 2 for the Salamanders. So, ignoring the Black Souls that are carrying a token. Interesting. They're prioritising the mortars. With the Fire Drakes just flown over the top, and he wants this one. Ember Sprites move forward. And the Fire Elementals have maybe got wise to my plan now. I know for a fact that the player of this army does watch my battle reports, so will be aware that I often try to lock out part of my opponent's army and just make them overcommit to something where I'm really not even trying to win the game in that area. So my opponent may be wise to that and is not sending the Fire Elementals over there. They're coming this way now. And the half-breeds, who regenerated some wounds last time, are going to take more firepower now. So double charge from the Phoenix and the Rhinosaurs into here. So here are my options. Next turn, this guy is actually within 12 inches of that unit. So my opponent actually makes me aware, very sportsmanlike, that this guy's speed is actually 6, not 5, which is what I've been playing all the way through this edition incorrectly. So if I were to drop that token, I could then flank charge this horde. So that's an option, because I'm on the hill, so I can see over this Titan here. So that's an option. Regardless of what these units do afterwards, I think that's still going to be an option. I don't expect the Phoenix and the weakened Rhinosaurs to kill this Defense 6 block that's currently inspired. That would be a very big surprise if they died. The Phoenix doesn't have many attacks. Let's see, the Phoenix attacks 5, and it's only crushing strength 1. So that unit should not die right now. I've also got the option of charging into the flank of the Phoenix. I've got a horde right here that could be surged into the flank of the Phoenix if this guy then goes off to charge into the flank there. My flyer could then go into the front of the horde with a flyer in the front with 9 attacks, him in the side with 24. I would hope that would be enough to kill that horde. And these guys who should survive would be able to then countercharge the Rhinosaurs who are already damaged and hopefully kill them. Sounds great in theory, let's see if it actually works out. So the horde are facing that way, because my flyer's there and they want to protect the flank of the Ancients. The half-breeds are dead from the shooting attack, which is not too surprising there. But look at this. 8 wounds on the Lesser Obsidian Golem Horde. I think there may be some dread involved, so it's effectively 9. So they needed to roll 8 twice to kill them, while they were inspired, of course. And they succeeded. I wish I could roll nerve rolls like that at this event, but those golems are dead, but it doesn't change too much in terms of my plan. So let's see how they end up being positioned. So you can see, look at that, some human fingers there, very nicely angled, measuring whether my flyer has a flank on the Rhinosaurs, which it definitely does. So he's going to have to do some repositioning here. So that's what he settles on. So I've still got the option of charging this big guy into the flank of the horde and the flyer into the front, which I think would kill them. I've got the option of charging the rear of the Rhinosaurs, who are angled out of his sight, so it would have to be a surge. I think these guys actually have sight on the Phoenix, though, because it went backwards after combat. They can charge the flank of the Phoenix. The Fire Elementals would then have range to charge the Golems afterwards, so the Gargoyles will have to fly and land around here to provide a blockage. So what do I do? What would you do in this situation? Would you try and kill off this big horde? Both these units are facing the wrong way. So afterwards, whichever one I don't go for is going to be stuck with nothing to fight for a turn. Do I charge the flank of the horde there and the front with my flyer? Or do I charge this guy into the rear of the Rhinosaurs? Those are two very valid options as far as I'm concerned. My flyer, if I choose to do that option, my flyer is just going to fly behind enemy lines somewhere and just hang out, ready for the future. So what would you do? If you want to leave a comment, watching this later on, feel free to pause the video there and leave a comment saying which option you would take. Would you charge the flank of this unit, or would you charge the rear of that unit? So if he wants to be surged into them, he's going to have to drop his token as well. So, but the thing with... hold on. So there's a token there, the other push token. The other one, there's one on that unit and the one on this horde. So potentially going after that unit would get me another token, maybe. That then leaves me open to being charged by the Ancients there, which isn't scary because they don't have many attacks. The Rhinosaurs do not have a token, but I may have to drop mine if I want to get it. So turn 2, here we go. Let's see what I go for. Well, this guy decides to charge the rear of the Rhinosaurs, and I get these guys into the flank of the Phoenix. So I decide I'll kill both those units and worry about the rest later. Now, I'm possibly thinking that a better option might have been trying to kill this unit, because the Rhinosaurs don't have as high a nerve. You don't often get a chance to charge a flank on a big horde like this, and those can be healed quite easily. So when you've got a chance to kill something that's really difficult to kill, maybe go for it, even if it's less likely to succeed than the rear charge on them. So maybe I'm thinking now that that might have been the better option. So I do kill off 2 units though, which is okay. And I think I did have to drop the token though. Gargoyles had to move into position to block these guys in. The mortar put some damage, looks like 8 wounds now onto those elementals, that's what they're up to. And the flyer just lands round here, so it's not going to get attacked by anything, and it's just looking into the rear of the enemy's army now, so we'll see what they do next. So the Ancients can charge something, these guys cannot at this stage. Black Souls are looking quite healthy there in enemy territory with the token. So I'm feeling good at the moment, even though I'm a horde of golems down. Turn 3. So the Ancients charge into these golems, and these guys just pivot a bit. So I can't actually see any of them with my flyer at this stage now because they've moved sufficiently forwards. So maybe I'm regretting moving my flyer out there. What I could have done with the flyer, if we go backwards a bit, you can see where it is. If I'd just positioned it here, out of enemy charge range, but staring in that direction, then maybe that would have been a better choice there, because it would have given them a really difficult situation to deal with, regarding which way to turn next time. So I think that's a bit of a mistake there. And here you can see the positioning of that unit and my golems is actually going to prevent me from getting a flank charge on these Ancients with my greater golem there. It may have to be a surge to do it. I don't recall. But they're poking out a bit. This unit is here, so the base will not fit in that crevice. So I'm going to have to get those guys out the way if I want to go in the front there. Or go in the flank, should I say. The Fire Drake decides to prioritise taking out a mortar, probably eat it, and all the elementals, the greater and the lesser fire elementals, both of them into the gargoyle. So there's how we're looking, and you can see what I mean. If this flyer had stayed here, this unit would not like that manoeuvre that they just made. It would have given them more to think about, so I think that was a bit hasty. So 4 damage onto this mortar from the Ember Sprites, but not enough for a waiver. And our tackle puts 4 damage onto the Black Soul Horde as they run away. Gargoyles are undoubtedly about to die. Mortar is dead from that damage. Mortar is dead from that damage. And that is now staring at the back of them. Not in range to charge them if I keep marching away though. So the Ancients do absolutely nothing, I think, in that combat against Defense 6. And you can see some charge distances being measured here. So what I wanted to do was send this unit and pull them back an inch and then charge them into these fire elementals, because they're already a little bit damaged, I think, so I may have been able to kill them. And that would allow me to then flank charge this unit with my greater golem. But you can see this guy overruns further than them, which means that the gap isn't big enough for me to actually fit through now. So that plan has to be put on ice. Interestingly, with 2 kind of hot, fiery lava armies. Turn 3. So what I end up doing is this unit. So we found out that this is actually a flank charge here, without needing a surge. So I would have to get them out of the way. So what I did was, went backwards, turned, went that way, then got surged into that guy. So because it was an engaged unit, it means that I can actually move within an inch of this unit during my move. That just seems to be how it works now. So previously it was only units like this with a square base that could pivot in front of something and then move sideways without it being a charge. But now, if you're engaged, you can still pretty much do that, as long as you end your move further away. So back away an inch, turn, move that way, surge, plonk into that guy, allowing him to then access the flank with his charge. So here we go. And he does a fair bit of damage, but again, my nerve rolls let me down and he doesn't kill them. So as soon as he didn't kill that unit, I thought, okay, that's game over, because you'll see the situation in a minute. These guys weren't going to kill him in one round. So the Hexcaster and the Mortar, what do? Put some damage onto this Horde. So look at that. I've weakened the Horde, but as soon as that unit didn't die, I thought, okay, definitely game over now, because there's a rear charge there, there's a rear charge there, there's a front charge there. So even though they're weakened, wounding on 6s, with a zillion attacks in the rear, even if they don't kill him, that unit in the rear will kill this unit easily. So I've only got him and my flyer threatening all these angles. So just really, really poor roll there. Saved them. And I think that should be game over now. We'll see what my opponent does. So he does go for the rear charge on this guy with the weakened unit, but elects for a double front fiery charge on these golems and doesn't take a rear charge with that unit. So the Fire Drake is still chasing after them. He elects to countercharge with the Ancients instead, thinking that because they're weakened and wounding on 6s, maybe that won't be enough to kill him, and maybe has more confidence in the Fire Elementals than I would. So, the Elementals, there's a bit of healing going on back here as well. So, some more shooting from Artacle on them, so they're going to have to turn around next turn and face a charge from that guy with a token. So the Greater Obsidian Golem dies as a result of all that, took 13 wounds, and he was inspired as well, so it still needed an average nerve roll to get rid of him. And here, this unit takes 8 damage, but they are alive. But is that going to be enough to help? It's looking bad. After that unit survived that charge, it's looking really, really bad now. So I think that's something I'm going to have to consider in future. When a flank charge or a rear charge presents itself, you don't have to take it, because often it's going to leave you sideways onto other units. So you're leaving yourself in a worse position because of it. And obviously, if you just roll averagely with the flank and rear charges, usually you kill things if you're using decent units like I am. If you're rolling below average, you're leaving yourself in a really game-losing position. So maybe that's something to think about for the future, not always being so overexcited to take those flanks on, that on average should kill something, but you can't rely on rolling average because this is a dice game. So the consequences of failure are quite high in those situations. Turn 4 for me. So these guys turn around, they're going to have to face 2 turns of attacks from this guy and this guy, which they may be able to do. They're only holding 1 token anyway, and it's all the way in enemy territory, so it's not going to be worth as much to the enemy as if it was in my half. So my flyer gets involved, flank charges the fire elementals and kills them, because that was left open. So they are, well, they were already kind of toasty, but they're just dead now. They've been put on ice by something really fiery and hot, which makes no sense. And these golems spun round, and in fact, we're going to have to go back to show you what I did here. So these guys went back an inch, they just changed facing to face that way, and then they had a flank charge to be surged into the Ancients, and they're carrying a token. And then the flyer, who, let's move me out of the way, you can see him up there, he's going to swoop in, he can see the elementals through that gap there, and he had to get the laser out to make sure, and then he flies in, swoop, 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 into the flank, eats them, they spin round, surge into the flank, nibble, dead, and moving on. So, they're dead. They're dead, but this unit's now in a bit of a tricky situation. Of course, if they charged him and killed him, then they would have turned back and would have faced, let's see. So if they killed him, they probably wouldn't actually, because he was so healed up, they wouldn't kill him in 1 hit, so they'd just get recharged by Ancients next turn. So that was the unit I was likely to kill, so I think that's what my thinking was there. Even though the situation that they're now in, I decided to offer up a rear to this horde instead of the greater fire elemental. And then I think I put weakness on the horde as well. So they'll be wounding me on 6s, so you never know, it could be a colossal failure. And it's looking fairly even in terms of numbers, but this unit is probably going to die in it. And over there, this horde is continually being weakened, and the mortar can't really see them anymore. Turn 5, so the Fire Drake into the front of the Black Souls, along with Artacle. I have to survive 2 rounds against them to keep that objective that's worth 2 points to me. And here, of course, we have the double charge on the golems. We're carrying a couple of tokens. These guys are as well, and they're weak. And this annoying geezer here is going to be healing. So the golems are dead. And now I'm going to have to make a choice. I'm going to have to charge something and then get flanked if I don't kill it. So I pick which one is more likely to die, because this guy's actually carrying 1 token. So I think, you know what? I might try and kill him in a minute, because it could happen. Much more likely than finishing off this horde, which has got a lot of nerve. Even though it's more damage, they've got a lot more nerve points remaining for their break point, I think. Over here, quite a bit of damage is dealt out to my Black Souls, but they're hanging in there. Turn 5 for me, so my opponent only has 1 turn left. I charge into the Fire Elemental, barely do anything. Another really poor round of combat from one of my units. And over here, I waver R-Tackle, because I thought, you know what, his nerve isn't very high. I could actually kill him and overrun into the big guy. And then, with a bit of luck, if I wavered that, that would guarantee me 2 victory points, because they're not going to kill me anymore, and I'm going to be sitting here pretty with those 2 points. So, it was worth a go, but unfortunately I couldn't kill him, just a waver, which is going to prevent some of the attacks coming in at me next turn. The mortar moves, because I might get 1 more shot with it later. I can get it into sight of something. I weaken the horde. And the fact that I haven't killed that thing means it's pretty much going to be game over now, because there's a flank charge here. I think it was already game over when the Ancients weren't killed by the flank charge. But I think it's definitely heading that way now. So this guy is going to die. And some flamey Ember Sprite attacks at my Ironcaster. The horde of Black Souls do get killed. So he's got that token stolen off them. The Overmaster is dead. And on my turn 6, all I can really do is charge a unit with the Ironcaster, because why not? He's got no offensive spells, I might as well have a go. And then cast Weakness on something to try and kill it, to finish it off, but that fails. So, the enemy have a token there. My mortar's still alive. They have a token up there, token there, a couple of tokens here, at least a couple. They might have 3 actually. Can't really see. But my opponent has lots of tokens, I don't have any, because I don't have any scoring units left. So it all went wrong. And really, it was a tale of Greater Obsidian Golem not killing the Ancients. Because if he did, it would have been looking like a pretty tasty position for me, I think. And of course, there was also, I think, the flyer mistake that I made, where I moved it to over here somewhere, where I could have left it out here and threatened a flank on the enemy instead of not being able to see them. So possibly a bit of a mistake there. Thinking I'll keep it safe and I'll just put it out at the back somewhere and use it later, but the enemy then have 1 whole turn where they can ignore it, which is quite a big deal. So a bit of a mistake there. So there's another loss. So 2 losses to end, with a massive win and a draw in there as well. So where does that leave me in the table? Well, not last place, but somehow I ended up 2nd last despite getting a huge win. So, very, very poor final placing, but really the last game was kind of irrelevant as far as if I'm talking about the Masters ranking page, because I've already got 4 good scores this season. So the only way this one would count would be if I got a podium position, really. Otherwise, it's just going to sit there and not count towards my overall score, because it only takes you 4 highest. So once I got to the last game on a loss and a draw already, then even though I got 1 win, if I'd won my last game, I wouldn't be able to get near the podium positions. So that last game really meant nothing in terms of the rankings, but the final position is, of course, a big deal at tournaments. And also, it may help put other people higher up in the rankings, which boosts their score, which brings them closer to me, which is another thing to consider as well. So, after that, I'm not even displeased with the list. I think the list is actually good. I think it was just a combination of a couple of mistakes and a couple of horrendous moments with some double ones in there and some really poor attack rolls. Those things combined leads to a bad time for the Abyssal Dwarfs. But the list, I think, is solid. I'd be tempted to just take the same list again, but even though I think it's a good list, I'm not sure it's 100% optimal, as they say. So this guy, at 2,000 points, is it too expensive putting in a 300-point model with only 9 attacks? You can really threaten enemy flanks with it, but when I did get him into enemy flanks, it didn't actually help me that much. because of the double 1 in game 1, obviously, that happened here. And there were a few other times where he just didn't roll that well in the attacks. If the enemy deny you flanks, then flying in with 9 attacks for 300 points does not sound that attractive to me, especially because you have to pick your facing carefully. One thing I liked about having Basusu, even though you're not threatening multiplying your attacks on flanks, you can just turn around and charge off whichever way you like. So, is Basusu a better option than this guy? Obviously, I wanted to bring this guy because my goal, really, in the last few tournaments, I've been trying to win the Best Painted award, really. And I think this guy looks really good and would help me in that department. But that hasn't worked. So do I continue picking an army and try to win Best Painted and just pray that none of the real elite painters out there turn up to the event? Or do I just pick an army purely based on an army list that I think is going to win and forget which models I think look cool? That's the choice I've got to make now. So there's another tournament in about 3 weeks. It's also at 2,000 points. So I may try something different for that. I may go back to something like the list where I won 100% of my games and finished second at Winter Wonderland, which had some decimators in there, and you had 2 mortars, but I also had Basusu and Brekkie, which is a combo that I've abandoned in favour of taking this big beastie lately. So obviously there's a lot of ways to counter my individuals. There's a lot of people running around there with duelist on their individuals, which can be scary, but I'd seem to do well avoiding that in all my games that I ran those 2 powerful individuals in. So that's something to consider. I may go back to that kind of list, because even though I feel like this list is good, you can't argue with the results sometimes. If you look at my results with the Basusu and Brekkie lists, then I had a 3 wins, 1 loss tournament and a 3 wins, 0 loss tournament. And since I started bringing this guy, then I've had 2 wins and a loss, and a win, a draw, and 2 losses. So maybe that's a sign. Should I just put it down to bad luck and a couple of mistakes, or should I put it down to list issues? That's something, if people want to comment on that, whether you want, what list would you like to see me running next time with the Abyssal Dwarfs? I may not even run Abyssal Dwarfs at the next tournament, because I've already got 4 good results with them, like I said. And I think for the best in race, it only counts your top 3 anyway. So if I'm just aiming for best in race purely, then I don't have to just keep running Abyssal Dwarfs over and over again at smallish tournaments. That's not really going to help me. But I do like playing them just because I think they're my best looking army, and I like how they're painted, and I like people's reactions to the army are always very positive. So that's obviously a big part of this game and community as well. So that's an aspect I'm trying to appeal to with this army. Let's get rid of Mr. Arrow. And I think I'm also going to disappear from the corner of your screen as well, because we're about to wrap this one up. So feel free, quickly drop some comments in there, because we're about to end if you've got any questions. The 3 mortars, it's the first time I've run it, and obviously it wasn't very successful, because I put that down to mainly I faced salamanders 3 times out of 4, and they all had outrageously high healing output, either through incredible dice rolls or just incredible healing potential through multiple healing units. So the mortars aren't ideal in that situation, because very rarely do they kill something instantly. When they hit now, it's more often that they do more like 4 or 5 or 6 across 2 mortars, that many kind of wounds. So if you've got someone like Basusu swooping in to finish off those wounds, that's great, but often those wounds are going to get healed back, because the salamanders, they had both the armies that I faced had the healer with the Shroud of the Saint, and one of them had the bonus of having the Phoenix in there as well, who just automatically heals wounds and has healed 5 on his own. So lots of healing, not great when you've got the mortars up against them. So I'd be interested to hear people's thoughts on that. I think 3 mortars is fine in general though, as long as I don't just run into similar lists to that constantly, like I did at this event. Of course, the one game where I didn't face salamanders, it was a pretty one-sided win for me, which was almost sent off track by a double 1, but thankfully that didn't affect the game in the end. I was still able to almost table my opponent in that one. So it was a fun tournament though, even though I didn't finish anywhere near the top of the table. And I'm going to have to paint some more dwarf heads now, because I give away a severed Abyssal Dwarf head to anyone that actually beats my army at the end of the game. So I've only got 3 left, and the next tournament has 3 games in it. So do I risk it and take 3 there? I usually like to have plenty of spare ones. So I may paint up some more, because I'm going to be playing this army a lot more in this edition, so I'm going to need the heads anyway, and I've got plenty of spare Abyssal Dwarf heads lying around. I'll get even more when I get some of the new models as well, so that'll be interesting. Who's going to be the first person to get one of the new Abyssal Dwarf heads from my army? I'm currently waiting on getting some grotesques, of course, because they're getting released this month. So I'm going to try out those when they're out, putting those in my army. A lot of these successful Abyssal Dwarf players around the world seem to run a lot of grotesques, and I can see why, because they're very survivable compared to half-breeds, and they hit really hard as well. And we'll see how it goes. I want to get the Hellfane as well, just because it's a nice model. I'm not sure about running it as a Hellfane. I'm sure I'll try it, but I may also run it as a second Greater Obsidian Golem, especially now that I've realised they're speed 6. So I could have been making more of that Golem over the last few weeks. Anyway, time to end this video. Don't forget to subscribe, obviously, if you haven't already. There's plenty of battle reports coming, plenty more tournament reports, at least 1 tournament a month I'm trying to do at the moment, if not more, when available. And battle reports, maybe just under 1 a week. It depends how often I can get games in. So don't forget to check out all the links in the description. I've got my Facebook group down there if you want to see everything I'm up to, and maybe post in there yourself if you've got anything relevant to my video output, and any Kings of War, specifically armies I'm playing. If you've got anything interesting on those to post in there, that would be nice. There's Twitter and all that as well, and of course all the fundraising sources. I actually had a very nice PayPal donation the other day. I say very nice, it wasn't like hundreds of dollars or pounds or anything like that, but it's nice to have, because I've had pretty much the same number of Patreon backers, I think, for the last few months, which is obviously nice as well. That typically goes to pay for either tournament tickets, which obviously then the video output benefits the people who can learn from either my mistakes or my glorious victories, or it'll go towards adding to my armies, of course. So feel free to check out all those fundraising sources, also linked in the description, if you feel like giving me all your life savings to boost my video output. And I think that's pretty much everything. Is there anything else I want to touch on? Probably not. Just looking around my hobby area to see if there's anything I want to mention. And I don't think there is. Okay, let's wrap this one up, folks. All that remains to be said is good night out there, whatever you are.